Welcome to ProAquatics.com. I'm Skyler King. As always, you can email me, SkylerPrepAquatics.com. You can follow me on Twitter, @SkylerPrep. Coming off a really big weekend of invitationals and one pretty exciting dual meet, frankly. We started to see some potential state lineup decisions in play at a big meet. Obviously, there could be some experimentation, but you'll at least see what is possible for these teams when they really load up to compete against other good teams. I was obviously at the Rosary meet, and Rosary is still a medley relay that's going to contend for a state championship this year. They were the #1 seed coming into state last year. Obviously, no one was beating New Triers relay last year, but it's going to be more open, wide open this year. You know, I think you could definitely see New Trier winning again. You could see Rosary winning. You could see Hinsdale winning. And you know, I don't think that was really in play last year. You just knew how dominant that Novel and Gridley front half could be, and no one else was really going to be able to compete with it. So this should be much more interesting. 147.7 for Rosary, and you know, I don't think you can rule out Deerfield's medley either because of what Park can do. But none of the other teams put medleys together to compete with Rosary at this meet. Naperville North, Neuqua, Ignatius, LT, all 51-53 with their A relays, and that just again kind of shows you what we've been talking about. These teams are basically going to have to pick 2 out of 3. Haley Volchek, who's not someone that we'll see a lot of at big invitationals throughout the year. This is an invitational that she was at last year, that I recall. But she put on display that she could really be, at the very least, a top-bottom contender at state, if not even a top. 153.7 in the 200, really dominated the field and won the 500 even easier. And we know how weak the 500 looks, and so that's an event she could definitely top 6 in. And you know, 458 can probably do it, and I think that's definitely a possibility for her. In the IM, Julietta Tracy dominated. Again, Tracy probably not a contender to win if everyone shows up at their best, but could definitely, you would think, contend for at the least top 3. And seeing her for the first time in person in a non-state meet scenario, you know, it's hard at state. There's just so many kids on deck, but I made it a point to watch her behind the block before races, and I really got some alpha dog energy from her, and I really liked seeing that. I think every team needs an alpha dog that is going to win a trophy, win a state title, and so I became more optimistic about St. Ignatius watching Julietta Tracy. Just how she kind of carried herself before during races on relays. I was impressed. 53, Gracie Colvin, 24-0. Becky Rentz, 24-3. Gracie Colvin, and she was another one that I was looking at behind the blocks, and man, she's a specimen. She's got impressive arm definition for a teenage girl. You can see why she's such a good sprinter. The unusual strength that she's able to pull the water with, and I didn't notice that quite as much in past years. She's obviously been coming to this Rosary, and I've seen her for a couple of years now, but this was the first year that I really looked at that shoulders, the arms. I was like, wow, you know, she looks like she spends quite a bit of time in the weight room, and so that's I think a good sign on 2 fronts for her. One, obviously sprinters, it pays to be strong and powerful. But two, when you compare it to the guys tend to drop more as an average across the board because they have more muscle mass. But because Gracie Colvin clearly has more muscle mass than even, I would say, the average top-end girl swimmer, we might see bigger drops from her at the end of the year because of that. And so that's going to be something that I'm really going to be watching throughout the season. Rents, I think she's going to swim the 50. She's actually swim the 100 free here, not the fly. I was bummed about that. Hopefully I get to see her swim the fly, maybe at Trev Relays later this year. But she's big time. She did it as a freshman last year. I don't have any concerns about Rents individually at the state meet. Regardless of what she swims, I think she's gonna have a great chance to be double top 6. In the fly, this was a really fun race. Amy Duhamel and Maya Arroyo went head-to-head. Duhamel 57.42, Arroyo 58.3, and that's probably the race that I was most looking forward to coming into the meet, having these two top 6 contender flyers go head-to-head, because there's a lot of people that can put together a freestyle in a dual meet or an invitational that may not even swim it at the end of the year, like Rents. Rents swam the 100 free. I think everyone probably thinks she's going to swim the fly, but you don't get to see strokers go head-to-head that often, other than the breaststroke in this season, because there's just so many of them. And so I was impressed that Duhamel, and neither one of them swam their best time, but that Duhamel was able to win this kind of showdown against top competition. That was, I thought, a good sign for her potential at the end of the year. As I mentioned, Rent swam 100 free, 52.2, wins it. Tracy 52.4, Colvin 52.5. So this was clearly the best event at this meet, with 3 girls who, if they swam it, would all be thinking about going top 6 in the 100 free. And it was a very fun race to watch them all duke it out. And there wasn't any big swing. It was close throughout, and it just kind of showed me that I might want to see Rents trained and see her swim the 200 free more, which is tough because they have such a good medley there. But the fact that she lost to Colvin in the 50 tells you maybe she's not a drop dead sprinter. There aren't a lot of those out there, and I think that her 100 time was clearly better than her 50 time, in my opinion. And because I think more people could go 24 low than can go 52 low right now. So I guess within the context of the state, I find it better. Mentioned Volchek swim the 500, 5.11.9, and it was an easy 5.11.9. Caroline Pendlay, 5.15.3, but she really came on the back half. I love watching the splits in the 500 free. She was out splitting her for at least the last 150, maybe even the last 200 yards, but Volchek was just so far out there that it didn't really matter. 200 free relay, LT continues their good run of free relay performance. 138.7, they touch out Ignatius, 39.1. Rosary 140.8. In the backstroke, Jilly McNamara wins at 59.1. And Lauren O'Connor didn't have one of her better races at 59.9. She was seated at 58 mid. But I'm not worried about her because I never remember her standing out in a big way in the season last year. And we know how she performed at the end. And so there's definitely some swimmers where if they're not posting really fast times throughout the season, you got to be concerned about them because they may just not get where they need to be. But O'Connor's not one of those swimmers that I worry about. Naraki dominated the 100 breast, 104.8. Olivia Moore, 106.9. And I've mentioned Olivia Moore a few times. She's a future scorer in the breaststroke. I don't know that she could score in the breaststroke this year, just because it's so loaded. In most other years in state history, if someone was going 106 in season, I'd say they got a really good shot to score. But I mean, 103s may not score this year, and so I just think it's going to be a very competitive. Obviously, some 103s are going to score, but you get what I mean. I think there's going to be a 103 left out this year. 400 relay, Ignatius 35-0, LT 35-7. No one else breaks 40. And so that goes back again to what we were saying about the relays. No medley for anyone but Rosary. No 400 relay for Rosary. And, they go 349. That's most teams in the state. And I still think that Rosary... and I mean, I guess you have to throw Ignatius into this because their medley really hasn't done much. Even as kind of lightly regarded as they were all back. I thought they'd be a little better. Most teams outside of Hinsdale and New Trier are going to struggle to score a third relay unless they put all their stars in 3 relays, which is a hard sell, even points wise, because if you have people that can all score a second individual race, especially like in Rosary's case, you would expect Rentz's second individual race to be a top 6 finish. Let's just give her 5th. If Naraki can score the IM, which I think she probably can, because I think the IM's kind of weak, let's give her 8th place. Now we're at 15 points. O'Connor, probably not. But now we got 15 points in this. And again, it's obviously possible Rentz is super talented that whatever her second race is, she gets even better than that. But let's just stick with 15 for this little thought experiment. That means that third relay has to be top 6 for it to be worth it to pull Rentz and Naraki out of second individual races. Could it be top 6? Sure. But if we're thinking about it being the 400 relay, now, Naraki, who you would think you'd probably be counting on in that relay, is coming out of the breaststroke. So you got one of your 4 girls coming out of the breaststroke, and again, you already took those IM points from Naraki and those 50 free points for Rentz in all likelihood in favor of the fly off the board. So it's a tough decision, and I do think that the 400 relay is the relay that everyone's going to go for. And so if that's the one that Rosary can drop, I think strategically, points wise, that's the best way to do it. A couple more meets I wanted to hit. Lake County. Lake County's definitely been down the last several years. Stevenson has really looked strong this year. And then with Barrington, you've got Jenna Kerr and what she's done early on, and then Deerfield. 146.8 for Deerfield in the medley, and that's why I threw them in that medley mix when we were discussing it. New Trier also went a 46 on Saturday, head-to-head with Hinsdale, and went 47-1. Obviously, this Deerfield relay is mostly about Annika Park, and that's why I would say they probably don't have as high an upside as the rest of these relays. Annika Park went 24-1 in the 50 fly. There's plenty of solid boys medleys that'll take a 24-1 in season 50 flyer. Which is to say, how much faster can she really go in the 50 fly? Again, we saw Mimi Schneider go 23-0. If Annika Park can go 23-0 in the 50 fly, that's still a really nice drop. But if she goes 23.5, a half second isn't that much. And so she's obviously going to be fast. She's obviously going to be the fastest 50 flyer in the state, probably by quite a bit. However, she already is. And therefore, she's not going to become more dominant at a state meet. In fact, she probably becomes slightly less dominant because, generally speaking, the superstars in the state, and she's probably, in my opinion, the biggest superstar swimming high school right now, tend to swim closer to their best times all the time. Therefore, she'll improve slightly less than everyone else come taper time. Anyway, Stevenson 147.2 is second, and Stevenson is a super balanced team. When you look at the splits, 26.8, 30.4, 25.7, 24.2, all good splits, not great splits. And so, they're a true, team in that sense. Whereas Deerfield's, mostly about that superstar. And which is fine. I mean, ultimately, the time adds up to what it adds up to. But it just leaves you a little more susceptible if your superstar is off to missing your goals. Park 150.4. According to the seed time, she added over a second. If she's already been 49 this year, I mean, whew. No one's beaten her in the 200 free if she swims it. Again, it's just a matter of if she will. Jenna Kerr 152.9. Again, I think is pretty close to a top 6 lock in the 200 free for Barrington. 200 IM, Shea Donovan 208.5 for Stevenson, 209.7 for Tuana Turhan from Lake Forest Academy. She had a nice day. And then Izzy Ramos from Vernon Hills 209.8 round out the top 3. And again, this was a meet that kind of surprised me. Lake County's usually one of the fastest meets of the year, especially for the teams that are there. But I actually saw a lot of time adds, which in a way is actually encouraging because I get concerned when people gear up so much for an in-season invitational. Logan Howard wins the 50 at 24.13. Isabella Wilhelm from Deerfield 24.19 shows that she added 0.43, which means she's already been down at 23.7, which is a heck of a swim in season for her, and puts her definitely in track to potentially be a top 6 in the 50 free. 54.9 for Park. Says she added almost 8 tenths. Again, just no one else is posting up times in any race that are equivalent to what she's doing. She wins the fly by 4 seconds. 100 free, Hannah Winkowski from Stevenson, 52.6. Logan Howard Libertyville, 52.9. And Wilhelm, 53.6. Again, if Winkowski can score for Stevenson, that's going to be a huge boon. I think Stevenson's one thing holding them back from being a trophy contender is it's harder to see the individual points for them because they don't have as many proven commodities that are locked top 6s. If Stevenson gets a proportionate amount of individual points compared to some of these other top teams we're discussing, like Kinsdale, Rosary, Ignatius, etc., they're going to be right in the thick of things. And that'd make it even more exciting to just have another team throwing their hat in the trophy ring. 500 free, Jenna Kerr, dominant, 5:01.9, wins by nearly 8 seconds over Kayla Newman of Highland Park, 5:09.5, who, again, I think Newman's a lock to score, potentially be top 6 in the 500 free. And so, not blowing out a bad field if you're Kerr. 137.2 for Stevenson, 38.8 for Deerfield, 39.7 for Libertyville. Again, Deerfield, 23.3 for Park, 23.5 for Park, 23.3 for Wilhelm. That maybe that's flopped, but regardless, even if Park's the 23.3, I mean, she's only 8 tenths better in a 50 free than a 50 fly, and that just shows you how dominant that 50 fly is in that medley. Nobody is only 8 tenths better freestyle than butterfly. Boy, girl, unless you're just somehow so good in the butterfly and terrible at freestyle. That's unheard of. 100 back. Jennifer Cheng, 57.7 for Stevenson. Abby Collins, 58.2. again, the by committee, Stevenson, I think you could see, if you tell me that Stevenson is going to go have like bottom six finishes individually, and then 3 top 6 finishes relay wise, you know, I would tell you I can buy that, and I can see that as a path to them getting in the mix. The problem is, how many of them can they sneak into that 6th spot to lock in those points? Because locking in 9 is a lot better than locking in 1, obviously. Nellie Sandor Stevenson 1070 wins the breast. Erica Ilq from Deerfield 1073. Turhan from Lake Forest Academy 1076. Again, most years these are strong competitive times. I have no time for 107s this year. In season, forget it. Again, I was talking about Olivia Moore's 106 and kind of going, you know, good for her, but not this year. And so you have to consider times based on the strength of the race you're talking about. And I think that's a really important thing to say when you're talking about this. Strictly from a PowerPoints perspective, there's going to be breaststrokers with way better times that don't score than, say, the 9th place 500 freestyler. And so that breaststroker is a better swimmer than the 500 freestyler, but the field is that much better than the breaststroke. And so when I'm breaking it down, I have to break it down by what's scoring worthy, as opposed to just what's the most impressive individual performance compared to the country, which is what PowerPoints really is adding up. Stevenson 332.9, totally dominated the 400 relay at this meet, and again, they got 3 really good relays, and that's a heck of a start. I think we have to start considering them in that group of teams with Hinsdale and New Trier, and potentially St. Charles North, depending on what they do with their lineup, that could potentially score 3 relays in the top 6. And again, if they can do that, they've got just about as many girls as anybody that can potentially score. It's just a matter of is it top or bottom. Lastly, before I go, wanted to hit this New Trier Hinsdale meet a bit. Again, these 2 teams, I think you reasonably could be eyeballing each other as a potential state championship team showdown. And the difference that Tierney Lenahan has made for New Trier can't be overstated. There'd be serious holes in New Trier's lineup, especially backstroke in the medley, if she hadn't moved to town. And it's really making all the difference in what it's allowing them to do with their lineup versatility. And even though she could easily not have as good a state meet as Noveline did last year, but the impact that she's going to have in the things they're allowed to do with the rest of their lineup is going to be very similar. Not all the results posted from this meet, so I don't have the 200 free, don't have a couple of the other races, but Caroline Kramer 210.3, Elise Newlands 211.3 in the IM, Papa Nicholas 213.8. Again, she's someone that I think I picked 12th in the IM this year, and it's because it's so weak. She's really the epitome of she's just a breaststroker, especially when you consider how good she is at the breaststroke. That she's not a better IMer is very unusual. 50 free, Olivia Saliga 24.7 wins it. Charlize Escasa 24.8. Escasa, again, I'm really curious to see, because I think she's a senior. You've got to give Escasa one of those 2 breaststroke spots with Papa Nicholas, unless you're really confident she's going to score in a freestyle race. And, I don't know what I would need to see to say that I believe that. But, Matt Guy, New Trier's swim coach, probably, has something in his mind that he wants to see to be able to make that move. Because they do have, we've talked about Papa Nicholas, Rosie Janya is a breaststroker that's a potential scorer if she makes the lineup. And that's really what it comes down to, New Trier with those three. 500 free, Burlington Bocas 2:14.2. Again, not like a standout time, but she's a returning scorer. So we know she can do it, and she's only going 5:14s. Granted, she won this race by 10 seconds. She definitely could have shut this one down, and potentially could have been closer to 5:10, which I think is a very respectable in season time. Hinsdale Central touches out New Trier in the 200 relay, 38.6 to 38.9. And again, last year, the big trump card that New Trier had when they weren't going to be able to put Noveline on the short relay because she was in the outsides is they had Kaylin Ridley, who we talked about Papa Nicholas being just a breaststroker. Kaylin Ridley was when you think about her, you think about Kaylin Ridley, breaststroker, but then you go, oh, she scored multiple times at the state meet in the 50 free. She's one of the best sprint freestylers in the state. They don't have anyone as good as Kaylin Ridley on this team. And as a freestyler, as a sprint freestyler, I mean. And so not having Tierney Lenahan on this relay, which I think they're basically going to, like I said, roll her the Noveline plan, means this relay is vulnerable. This is New Trier's most vulnerable relay when the state meet comes around. Now, they may very well still get into the top 6. No one's deeper than New Trier. But if you're a New Trier fan, this is the relay. Kind of like I talked about in the beginning of the season, before I knew about Piperwood Prince and all that was happening with Ignatius. I said, if the Ignatius medley scores, you can just hand them the first place trophy. The 200 relay for New Trier is going to be the one. If that one sneaks in top 6, then, they're going to have a very good chance to be the state champions on Saturday afternoon. Because there are 2 other relays I think are both going to be easy top 6s. And with Lenahan in the fold, I think they're going to have plenty of individual points. Speaking of Lenahan, 100 back, 56.9. Again, she's not going to see many meets where she actually has any competition. And that was certainly the case here as well. Kramer, 105.3. Papa Nicholas, 105.4. Escasa, 106.5. Again, Escasa, she's been much faster. She's been 103. I think that was in the first meet of the year at the Kendall Pickering meet, and where she beat all these girls, all her teammates, including Janya, who went 7 flat, Papa Nicholas and Kramer to win that invitational. And so, but I mean, Janya's been 6 low. And so New Trier's got 3 breaststrokers that have all been 6 low or better. And Escasa's the only one who is valuable as a freestyler on the relays and could reasonably not swim the 100 breaststroke at the state meet. But she's also a 101 breaststroker. So that's the predicament for New Trier in terms of how to fit their lineup together. Hinsdale did not go for a 400 relay. 342, New Trier 334.3, and again, that's the predicament for Hinsdale is they have a state champion 50 freestyler, but they can't get her a second race because 342 is not going to be good enough. And if they're trying to win the state meet, they're going to need 3 top 6 relays. They're going to need, maybe even a top 6, a sneaky top 6 IM out of Kramer to get done what they really want over teams like New Trier, Ignatius, etc. And so I think it'll be really interesting in a couple weeks as we move into October here when I redo my predictions based on what we've seen, because I think that a lot of things are coming to light, and it'll be interesting to tinker with people's lineups and see mathematically what looks like the right move for some of these teams that could potentially go through relays one individual, or give a second individual race to their stars. And I think a decision like that could potentially decide this state meet, because I think it could be that close. A lot of these teams are that equal in talent, and we don't talk about diving really at all, because again, I'm not claiming to be a diving expert. To me, I can tell when the kids are diving, if it's a good dive or not. But I'm not going to ever claim to be an expert in the lists that people throw and things like that. Diving is a huge wild card, and most swim coaches would tell you that unless they have like a superstar elite kid, that they're not really counting on diving points, because it's just, it can be so volatile. It's judged. Swimming is like, if you touch the wall in a certain time, that time's never not been top 6 before. It's probably going to be top 6 again. It may not be. Again, like the breaststroke this year, who knows. But in diving, the scores compared to previous years really don't matter, because you can't compare it to anything except what's going on in the pool that day and what everyone else's scores are. So you might think you're having a poor meet, but the scores are just low, and therefore you're doing a lot better than you normally would with the same score, because everyone else is are scoring 3s and 4s, and you're scoring 4s and 5s, even though you normally score 6s and 7s. So I think that the way these teams have looked, everyone's shown flashes. Stevenson, again, I think we have to start considering them in the mix. And Ignatius, again, I think I'm beginning to officially count out their medley, but the free relays are legit, and I think that you can say that about everybody now. Everyone's going to have a legit 2 relays and a question mark third. How big a question it is going to depend. Obviously, the teams like Stevenson, I think their third relay is probably going to be the best third relay in the state, the way things look now, because their individuals aren't top 6 locks like some of the other teams are, and so there's no temptation to put their kids in a second individual when they could potentially score 3 relays in the top. And ultimately, that could be a way that they get a leg up, because some teams catch a bottom 6 and they don't. And obviously, with the points being double, the relays are really at a premium. Hope you had a great time if you went to a meet this past weekend, because there was a lot of good ones that we covered. That's why we probably went a little longer today. Next week, we'll be back covering another great weekend of swimming as we push towards October, just a few weeks away from redoing predictions and starting to talk about conference taper time here at PrepAquatics.com.